morning. So I am going to go over in excruciating detail my own set of ambitions and plans and goals for the coming year in 2026. Because I think there's a lot of really generic and catch-all advice out there that it's meant to apply to everybody, but it ends up applying to nobody because it's just like somebody's list of like, do this and this and this, and it's not at all tailored to you. And the only way that I've found to actually get things done, actually manage to achieve what I want to, is to really consider my own personal set of strengths and of flaws. Like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm bad at. So taking that into consideration has allowed me to really thrive and go where I want to be in life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down my stuff. I'm going to give you a video agenda here in a sec, but I'm going to break down all of my stuff. I'm going to talk through the roadblocks that I expect to encounter. And what I would suggest, if you're willing to, is follow along and follow my, template here. Template's not really the right word, but like the way in which I'm talking through my stuff, make your own version of it for yourself. Go through your own aspirations, your own goals and planning in the same way as you follow along with this video. And that should allow you to really plan out based on your own personal strengths and weaknesses, what you can realistically achieve in the year. And if you actually stick to that plan that you've made for yourself, and I know that's the hard part, but if you do, that is how you're going to actually get to what you want to be achieving in the year. So here's the agenda for the video. I'm going to start by just giving a generalized idea of what my ambitions and aspirations are for the year in 3 different areas, okay? I'm going to go over YouTube channel related stuff, I'm going to go over music related stuff, and I'm going to go over personal real life work related stuff, and that's going to be its own category. After I've just given you the generalized version of what I want to get done in the year, I'm going to break down in excruciating detail what my goals are, what I know I'm going to struggle with, how I'm actually going to get to every single one of the goals that's going to let me get to those bigger aspirations and ideas for the year. And then I'm going to have a whole section just specifically about roadblocks that I know I'm going to encounter, specifically about flaws that I know I'm going to have to address and deal with throughout the year. And my hope is by the end of this video, if you actually follow along and follow a similar template of sorts for yourself, you will have your own version of this that you can follow through and work on throughout the year. Where I'm going to start at is a list of ideas and aspirations for the coming year. And I'm going to try to keep this realistic for myself, but I'm also going to take care not to get too lost in the weeds of how I'm going to achieve every single one of these things. I just want to give myself a broad overview to start with. And we're going to start with YouTube, since I think that's something a lot of people who watch YouTube, I get the feeling, are also interested in the video creation side of YouTube. What is the process actually like for somebody who's making videos? So I don't know, if you're interested in that, then here we go. We're both interested in the coming stuff here, but let's talk about YouTube first of all. And I have a guiding principle that I've really started to follow with regards to my channel. And that principle is I want to make the videos that I want to make, and only secondary to that is the success level of the videos. And when I say success, honestly, what matters most to me is making videos that are fulfilling to people, that people walk away from them and say, I just learned something really important. This was life-changing for me as a video. And maybe not to the level of life-changing on every single video, but videos that really make a difference for people. And that to me is a lot more important in terms of success than the metrics of views and subs and that sort of thing. But I will say my long-term goal for YouTube is having a job out of it, a career out of it. And that means I have to sort of balance the trajectory that I'm on, because I want to maintain that I still make the videos that I want to make. I want to maintain that I'm not just, selling out, essentially, is, to put it in a word, selling out. I want to make sure that I don't sell out in that sense, while still ultimately being able to make this into a career for myself. So that means I have to stay really balanced, and that's sort of my aspiration and dream and idea for the year. And I do think that's realistic in the sense that I think I could achieve it, but I do think that's going to require a lot of careful planning for me. So when I get into the more detailed section, I'm going to talk about where I'm at right now and then what I'm going to need to do to continue to try to get myself to the point where YouTube could actually be a job for me. So that's YouTube related stuff. When it comes to music, my dreams and aspirations they actually feel a lot more like achievable for me in a sense than compared to like YouTube, right? YouTube always feels like this sort of like nebulous thing that like I think realistically I can get to where I want, but music, it's like I know I'm going where I want with that. And with music, what I want to be doing this year is I want to release an album. I want to release 2 singles before that album. And I also want to finish the violin composition that I'm working on. And that's a little bit secondary to releasing an album, but the album is the big thing. And I will talk about my planning for that album in a bit, since I have a lot of in-depth planning for like where I'm at and where I'm going with that album. And then let's talk about real life, personal work-related aspirations and goals for the year, just in a general sense. So I have 4 big things that I'm thinking of that I want to be working on through the coming year. The number one biggest thing is going to be sleep schedule related stuff. And I think that's something a lot of people are probably like also going to be working on. Yeah, I have to get better at maintaining a consistent sleep schedule. And for me, what that's going to look like is I'm going to have to be going to bed on time. I'm going to get to how I'm going to be going about that. But number 2 thing that I want to be working on in terms of personal stuff, I want to be eating better and exercising more. And again, that's like something everybody seems to always want to work on. I mean, you know, generic human things that like we all should be working on. So that's something I'm going to be working on. I also want to make sure that my working days are more productive throughout the year, and I have some ideas for how I'm going to get to that. And then lastly, I want to make sure that I make more time for friends and for family in the coming year, because unfortunately, I say this with great shame. I absolutely do have a track record of putting people off to work on, whether it's work or whether it's on like projects like YouTube. I do put people off and I do cancel plans for stuff like that. And that's not really a good thing to do. Unfortunately, at times it is necessary. It is sometimes a necessary evil, but I do think I could be putting in more effort and I could be spending more time with the people that I care about. So that's something that I also want to be working on in the coming year. So let me break down everything for you, just goal by goal, and let's go in detail here. Specifics. Let's start by positioning ourselves in a place where we're aware of any struggles, mistakes, things we did poorly, maybe even failed at in the past year. And this is not to beat ourselves up over it. Like, if you feel like this is going to torture you, don't do it. But for me, this is really helpful because it informs me of the choices that I need to make in 2026, the things that I want to do better, the solutions and the strategies that I'm going to have to work on. Being aware of what I did poorly at in 2025 is the key to that for me. So there's a number of things I can think of with regards to YouTube. The biggest one being scheduling of work on videos. And this actually was probably noticeable to you guys as well, when my schedule just like outright failed me and I managed to just go multiple weeks without uploading a video because I totally messed up, right? And that I think can be solved with one simple fix to my schedule process of working on videos. And that simple fix is this, okay? So right now I have a running list of video ideas. I just write down video ideas whenever I have them. Like if I'm just cooking something and I have an idea for a video, I write it down. If I'm out walking, I have an idea, I write it down. And that results in a lot of like random ideas that aren't necessarily viable, but sometimes I do pursue those ideas and sometimes they work out. So I am happy with the fact that I write down a lot of like really crazy ideas, but that also does at times result in ideas that are not viable for videos. And then I spend multiple days researching those ideas only to realize there's some crucial issue with them that I can't finish the video. And that's when the schedule falls apart. So I have a very simple solution for this that I think is going to fix the schedule. What I'm going to try to do in 2026 is I'm also going to keep a continually running list of research on those ideas, instead of not really a list, more of like a document of research. And instead of only starting research on an idea once I'm ready to make the video on it, I'm just going to research my ideas when I have free time. Like if I have a list of ideas, I'm just going to, go pick an idea, start researching it. And that's going to allow me to weed out the ideas that are not viable for videos. If there's some like crucial issue with what I was thinking this video was going to revolve around, well, I can catch that early on and not when the week that I'm about to make that video comes up. So that's going to save me from the whole like multiple weeks of like, oops, I managed to have a bunch of bad ideas and now I don't have a video to post, right? That should help a lot with scheduling. And I also have a concrete goal that I want to set for myself, and that is 2 video uploads per week with a fallback of 1 per week. And I think setting a fallback is really, really important here, because I have had the goal of 2 uploads a week for a while, but a lot of the time I end up not hitting that, and then I feel really guilty and really demotivated for not hitting that. And I think the reality here is that I have a real life that sometimes gets in the way of working on a video, or sometimes the video is just more complex than I thought it was going to be. It's just harder to make, and then it takes longer. That's just reality. That's not something that I need to be worried about when I'm not hitting that 2 uploads a week goal. So 2 uploads a week is what I'm striving for. It's still, what I wish were the ideal here, but 1 upload a week is okay. If I don't manage to hit that 2 uploads a week, I'm not going to feel guilty if it's just 1 per week, but I do want to be hitting 1 a week. So that's where I'm going to set my goal and my fallback. And that kind of leads me into another thing that I want to make sure I'm doing in 2026 with YouTube videos. And that is posting videos that meet my standards solely, exclusively, nothing below my standards. Now, I would say I have pretty realistic standards when it comes to my videos. That's something I do feel like I'm decent at. I can set realistic standards for myself. I don't have too high standards or too low standards. But occasionally I will let a video slip past that does not meet my standards. And an example of that is the video that I posted last week of Vim tricks. So something had actually happened that day that took up a huge chunk of my time. It was totally unexpected, and I didn't get to working on that video until way later than I had thought I would be able to. And that resulted in I just wrote down the tricks that I was going to cover. I recorded it. That was it. I didn't do any research on them. I didn't bother going through and carefully figuring out what I was doing, or, slowing down and recording the video a little bit more with better pacing. Nope. I just went and I did it. And that that ended up biting me later on, because what happened was I claimed that something was the best way to do something. It wasn't. There was a way better way of doing something, and if I had done 5 minutes of research, I would have realized there was a better way of doing it. And that video was not to my standards. I knew when I was posting that video, I really should have taken a sec and researched these and made sure that when I'm saying this is the best way to do it, it really is the best way to do it. Turns out it wasn't. So that was something that if I just asked myself a really simple yes or no question of does this video meet my standards, or should I just, when I have a chance, wait and redo it when I can. And it would have been a couple days. Sure, I would have had to wait a couple days, but I would have been able to redo it. And it probably if I'd taken the time to research, it would have saved me from posting something where I claim it's the best and it's not the best. And then I have to do the whole thing of making a comment that's saying okay, this is actually a better way of doing it. By the way, guys, I was wrong in this video, which nothing wrong with being wrong, but I should be posting things that are correct, ideally. So that's what I'm talking about with standards. And again, that's going to be a really simple yes or no question. If this video does not meet my standards, I will simply wait until I have time to redo it, and I will redo it. That simple. Now, something else with regards to YouTube, and this actually isn't based off of a failure or a struggle in the past year. This is just something that I want to start doing. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this to you. Okay, imagine a Venn diagram, right? 2 circles, so circle here, circle here. This circle is videos that I want to make. This circle is videos that you want to see. Now, there is overlap between those two. There is a significant amount of overlap, actually. There's videos that I want to make that you also want to see. But there's also polls on each of those. There's a side here where it's videos that I want to make that I'm not sure that you guys necessarily want to see. I just don't know. And then there's videos that you guys want to see that I haven't really considered. Do I really want to make that video? It wasn't something that I'd even thought of, and I'm sort of a little bit apprehensive because it's outside my comfort zone, right? So what I want to do is have just a 70-30 ratio here. 70% of the time, I'm going to be going for videos in that overlap. Videos that I want to make that you guys also want to see. So that's 70% of the time. 30% of the time is going to be split roughly in half between those other two poles there. So 15% of the time, roughly, not holding myself to like a super exact standard on this, but roughly 15% of the time, videos that I want to make that it's like, I just really want to make that video. I don't know if you guys are going to enjoy it or not, but I just want to make it. And then the other 15% of the time there, I will push myself, go out of my comfort zone a little bit and try to make videos that I know you guys want to see that aren't necessarily videos that like I was, super ready to make and super excited about and super comfortable with. Because a lot of the time, like, it turns out, right, like I might make a video that I wanted to make that I'm not sure you guys are gonna like, but you do end up liking it, and then vice versa as well. Like, you guys might have suggestions that I was a little bit apprehensive about, but then it turns out I really did enjoy making that video. So I think that is the best ratio to have, and those are really the biggest goals that I think are going to forwards my channel in the right direction in 2026. So, let's talk music. This is my favorite section of the video. I don't know if you can tell, but I am so excited that this is finally going to be the year where my album is complete. I have had a concept in mind for an album for a while, and I finally started working on it in 2025. I have a finished track list, more or less. Obviously, it's a little bit malleable in that I might need to change some things later on, but I have a finished track list, and I have bare bones outlines for the majority of the tracks on that list. And this is going to be a full-length album, so I think it's probably going to be at least an hour long, more or less around there. And I have my bare bones outlines. I have tracks that I've started on. So I have one track that's actually close to finished. And then I have a few other tracks that are like little bit past that bare bones outlines. So the way that I work on music, actually, and I don't know if this is common or not, I start by outlining the entire project. So by project, I mean, in this case, the album. I have outlines for every single track on that album because the key thing to me, the key important thing is that the entire album makes sense as a whole. Like, this is not individual tracks that are just functioning by themselves. This needs to be something that functions as a whole together. And the key to doing that for me is working on the outlines and working on the tracks sequentially in the sense that, like, I have the outlines for everything. I'm going to flesh them all out a little bit. I'm going to flesh them all out a little bit more. And then I'm going to finish them all together at the same time, right? That is the process that I've found works best for me with what I'm trying to do in terms of an album like this. And I've made pretty good progress for like 2025. I got done what I felt like I needed to put myself in the position of I can finish this album this year. And even if it takes me until like December 31st of 2026, that's all right. But I want to make sure it's done this year, and I think it can be. So the one area that I know is a significant flaw of mine, a significant weakness, is that I really like dive headlong into stuff. And I often miss that I have skills that I need to brush up on, like technical skills that I just am totally missing. I need to learn that before I, mark something as finished and say that it's completed. And in this case, that's going to be mixing and mastering. Those are the two areas, or one area if you want to think about it like that, that I really struggle with the most, and I've always struggled with the most in terms of music. And that's just because I don't have the technical knowledge. Like, I just haven't taken the time to learn it properly, and that is something that I need to be doing. And I'm fully aware that, like, it is a flaw of mine that I just dive into stuff and I'll often like miss that sort of technical areas and like not realize like, oh shoot, there was this entire technical area that I forgot about that I probably should have learned. I guess that's kind of a greater problem with the idea of like kind of teaching yourself things as opposed to learning things from somebody who already knows what they're doing. But it is what it is. That is something that I have to absolutely work on. And what I want to do here to ensure that I work on it is once the album is just done in a basic sense, like once I have it, first draft done, I'm going to spend at least 2 months here working on mixing and mastering purely in terms of like hardcore learning how to do it, doing it properly, doing it to the best of my ability as I'm learning how to do it. So that way I can actually end up with a finished product that meets that sort of technical standard. And like, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. I don't expect it to be perfect, but I think I could do a lot better if I took the time to really learn that skill. So that's going to be a big thing. I also do have a goal of releasing 2 singles before the album's release, at least a month before the album's release. So that sort of walks that album sort of first draft deadline back a little bit more. So say I need like, 2 months, maybe 3 months for mixing and mastering. I also need a month so that I can release those singles. So walk it back from December 31st. We'll just walk it back. Let's just say August is when my first draft needs to be done. So I'll just say August as a tentative goal for my first draft of my album there, right? And yeah, I have 2 singles that I do want to release. I know which they are already because I have the track list planned. I know which are going to sort of carry the album as like an introduction to it. And those are the 2 singles. They actually work together. It's like 2 parts of the same track kind of, but they're going to carry the album as an introduction, and that's sort of how it's going to work. And I have that planned out. So that's pretty good in terms of where I'm at, scheduling wise with that. I feel like I have a handle on this. I really do. I'm excited for this, but it's going to be a lot of work. But I think I can do this in 2026. And another side project goal that I have musically is finishing my composition and practice on the violin piece that I'm working on. I think I should be able to accomplish that in 2026 as well. Though that is a little bit of a secondary goal. Like, that's going to take a backseat as I work on the album, should need be. But I do still practice every day, and that is something that I always intend to continue doing. And that's something, actually, I could probably share a piece of advice with this. My goal is generally like practicing an hour a day, but that does not always happen, and that's okay. Like, sometimes life does get in the way. I mean, obviously if I were, trying to be like a professional with this, then that wouldn't be okay, and I'd really need to be hitting that, like, I'd need to be doing many hours a day if I were a professional, but I'm not. I'm just learning this because I'm passionate about it, and I think it's okay to be like, all right, life got in the way, and I only have 30 minutes, but don't throw away those 30 minutes, don't throw away, even if it's 20 minutes, don't throw it away. Just, even if you can only do a little bit in a day on something that you're trying to learn, it's still worth doing. It's still worth doing, so that way you can have that consistency of, yes, I've been doing it, every single day, and that is really where you start to learn it. So yeah, that's music. Okay, personal, real life, work-related goals. This is the area where I feel like I can actually give real advice to you guys, since this is something that I feel like I've improved a lot for myself in the past number of years here. Let's actually start with sleep schedule, since I think that's something that a lot of people are probably trying to improve. I mean, I feel like I'm eternally trying to improve it, but I have done better in the past year, and the reason that I've done better is because I started waking up at a consistent time, always, constantly, same exact time. Even if I have like a day off or whatever where I don't need to be up at that time, I still get up at that time for the sake of keeping the habit. And I started by just using an alarm, and by now I'm just sort of like attuned to that time so I can wake up without the alarm. But that, I think, is really important, waking up at the same time every single day. And the area that I really need to improve on is going to bed at a more consistent time. Unfortunately, I'm totally the type of person who will get caught up in something and then just work to like the wee hours of the morning and just be like, whatever, I'll just go to bed when the project's done. But that really doesn't work, and I think the way to combat this is to say, okay, if that happens one time, all right, it's fine. It is what it is. But the next night, I'm going to do everything in my power to get to bed on time. And I'm not going to allow myself more than one day of like managing to stay up super late, because that's when the schedule falls apart. So if I only have one day where I mess up, that's all right. I'm not going to feel guilty over it. But the second day, so if I stay up until 3 a.m., wake up at like 6 a.m., right? And that night, I'm going to go to bed on time. Whatever time that I'm setting for myself as like roughly on time, whether that's, 11, 12, whatever, that's when I'm going to bed. So that is what I'm going to do for sleep schedule, and I think consistency is pretty important with regards to sleep schedule. Now, something else that I've actually been doing over the past year is tracking my sleep with correlation to productivity and then a bunch of other different habits, and I'll probably make a video on this when it's been exactly a year from when I started tracking it, but I can say with certainty, with real scientific proof, sleep and productivity are correlated. It is true, and I know that's something that's like probably super obvious, but I had to track it for myself to see if it was true for me, and it is true. If I sleep better, I am way more productive 100% of the time. Absolutely. So I think that's if you're trying to be more productive, sleeping better is probably the biggest factor for you, to be honest. But something else in terms of productivity, just throughout the working day, I want to be more productive in terms of how I'm allocating time to tasks. And something that I've noticed that can really be a roadblock for me in terms of productivity is I will get caught up in a task that ends up taking forever, and then I just like kind of get demotivated from it, and then it just like goes on through the entire day. It's just, I just need to be dropping that task and going to something that I can be capable of doing in that exact moment to sort of remotivate myself and go back to that other task that was taking a while later on. And I think that's going to be a pretty good solution here for getting bogged down with those tasks that just end up taking the whole day, because I just, you know, at first it's hard and then I get demotivated and then it just takes longer and longer. I think just dropping it and going back to it is going to be a good solution for that for me. Now, with regards to stuff like eating better, exercising more, obviously that's going to be something extremely personal to every single person here. Like, that's absolutely not something that I can give you advice on. You know what you need to be doing for yourself. You know what your own goals are. You know what you're trying to achieve. But I will give you a couple of more like generalized tips on things that I have found have been helpful for me. So first of all, tracking your habits. I know this is something that like a lot of people tell you to do, but it is genuinely helpful. Like in a psychological sense, it's really helpful in that if you write down your habit that you've been working on, like just a simple thing, like simple notebook, just put like a check or an X, just like write out like what is my habit here, and then put a check or an X every single day. That is really helpful, because then you'll see like, okay, I have a week of checks here. I don't want to break my habit today. I don't want to, you know, have to put an X here. And it's like a psychological trick that actually works. I find it like if I see, okay, I've been doing so well with this habit, I'm able to do it today. I'm going to do it today. I'm not going to break the habit. And I think that is really helpful, and that has been helpful for me in multiple areas in my life. And like I said, I was actually tracking sleep versus productivity in the past year with some other stuff. So I'll make a video on that once it has been a year to the date of doing that. But in terms of like exercise as well, I think just a little bit of exercise every day. I know some people are like totally way past that, so keep going wherever you're at. But if you are just trying to get started with exercise, just a little bit every day, even if it's just something as simple as walking. I luckily have had a really good exercise routine the past 5-6 years, I guess. But back before that, it was just sort of like, let me just go walking every day. I'll just go walking every day. It is what it is. And just a little bit of exercise every day is the key to getting started with something. Don't set the bar too high at first. So that's sort of the personal habits there. And then the one other thing I wanted to talk about with regards to like personal stuff is I want to make more time for friends and family and people that I care about in my life. And honestly, I don't know how many people do relate to this or not. And this is sort of, I don't know, I feel a little bit like shameful to talk about this, just because it's like, I don't know. I feel really bad that I put people off in order to work on, like, honestly, sometimes it's even YouTube. Whether it's work or it's YouTube or music or stuff, I put people off so that I work on my own stuff. And I don't know if that's like egotistical or what, but I feel really bad for doing that, honestly, and I want to try to be better about that in the coming year. I want to try to be better in terms of making the time for the people that I care about, even if it's like, I feel like I'm going to be behind on my project if I, you know, take the time to go be with somebody else. But like, you know, somebody always wants to hang out with me, and then it's like, I just end up putting them off, and I just feel really bad, because that's honestly how you ruin friendships long term. It really is. So yeah, I'm going to try to do better with that in the coming year, and I don't really have any super serious strategies on that. Like, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do better with that, unfortunately. And that's something I have to think about more, just because I always run into this issue of like, I do a lot of stuff. I think it's probably obvious given my channel that like I do a lot of different things. And so I always run into this like rut of like, I have to finish this. I can't be like hanging out with these people because I have to go finish my thing that I'm working on. And it kind of sucks. But it's like, if I were to go hang out with people, or if I were to go, you know, visit that relative or whoever, it ends up resulting in like, I'm behind on this project now. And then the next week is like awful because I'm so behind on like everything that I'm supposed to be doing because I just took like 6 hours to go spend time with somebody else. So I'm trying to think of some solutions for this. I'm sure I'll find something, but that is a goal of mine that I want to be working on. And I guess if you relate to this as well, then hopefully you can find a way to spend more time with people you care about in the coming year as well. Okay, let's talk weaknesses and struggles and things that I know I'm going to have trouble with in the coming year. the first thing that I want to say is it's okay to give something a try, even if you're not sure you're going to be successful at it. And that's something I feel like I always struggle with. I always get really caught up in, I have this uncertainty of whether this thing is going to work out or not. And I start thinking of like all of the different ways that it could go wrong. And that really demotivates me from working on it. And I think it's okay to allow yourself to say, this could totally go wrong, but I'm going to try anyways. I'm just going to keep working on it anyways, because realistically, at the end of the day, if we didn't try so many different things, we wouldn't have things that ultimately succeeded. Like, we have to try a lot of things to find those things that do succeed for us. So it's okay to try something, even if you're not sure that it's gonna work out for you. And likewise, it's okay to fail at something. It's okay if you work on something really hard and then you get to a point where something goes really wrong and it just goes downhill from there and you end up failing at whatever it is. It happens, and we all fail at things at times, and I know that's something like that is, I don't know, hard to accept, I guess, and I don't know, I'm talking about this in the way that I am because this is something that I really struggle with, you know, being able to accept that, like, this didn't work out for me, I just totally failed at this, and that is something that's like you have to at some point just make peace with, and you just have to keep pushing forwards, even when you're not sure that things are going to work out. And just know that things eventually will work out. Like, eventually you will find that thing that works out. And likewise, I do sort of hold that to myself as like, I know that's a thing. I know that's a thing for me, that eventually I will find those things that work out. Because I have in the past. I've found things that work out. So when I'm trying something that I'm uncertain with, I know that there's a chance for failure. And I also know that there's a chance that it could work out. So keeping that in mind, I think, is really important. It's also okay to sort of bail halfway through on something. Like, don't get stuck in that, like, sunk cost fallacy of, like, I've been trying so hard at this and I'm just gonna see it through even when I know that it's gonna fail. If you see the handwriting on the wall for something, you know something isn't gonna work out, just bail when you realize that, okay? Don't try to see something through when you already know that it's not going to work, simply because it's going to be so much effort wasted and you're just going to demotivate yourself further. And I'm not saying quit something halfway through. Like, don't quit when you're just uncertain. Don't quit if you're not sure that it's going to work out. But if you know that it's not going to work out, it's okay to quit. It's okay to bail on it. And you don't need to feel guilty for bailing on it for, when you know something is really not going to work. So those are a couple things that I am sort of worried about in the coming year, but I'm just going to keep reminding myself of essentially what I just said in this video. And really, a lot of the time, the things I talk about in videos are things that I'm just trying to remind myself of, like things that either I've discovered, I've learned that I want to share, that like, this worked for me, so maybe it'll work for you too, right? Or it's things that I'm trying to remind myself, and I'm making the video to really distill and condense my thoughts for myself. And that's the case with this section of like talking about, weaknesses and flaws and that sort of thing. And another big flaw that I have is I have always had this mindset of like, I do things my way. I always have done things my way. And luckily, I have had some level of success at doing things my way. I have gotten to a point where that flaw of always wanting to do things my way has at times turned into a strength of, I did it my way, I did it differently, I did it outside the box, and I was actually successful at that, and it was even better because I did it my way. And occasionally that happens, but a lot of the time that is a massive flaw, to always be wanting to do things my way. And unfortunately, that is something that I do feel like I struggle with. So what I'm going to try to do in the coming year to sort of address that flaw and be aware of that is just keep in mind that sometimes other people have ideas that are better than my ideas. Like, I know I can get really stuck in like thinking like my way is the way to do it, my way is the way that it's going to be successful, and your way isn't going to work. That is something that I need to make sure that I'm aware of, that I have that tendency, and consider that other people's ideas may well be better than my own, and just keep that in mind with me as I go forwards. And yeah, just be open to other people's suggestions, other people's help on things, as opposed to always wanting to do things myself and my way. I think that's a really important life skill, and that's sort of one of those things that, given sort of I guess my personality and my tendencies, is something that I am eternally keeping in mind and eternally working on. And I think it's worth being aware of your flaws. Like, obviously you might not share that exact same flaw as me, but it's worth being aware of your own personal flaws and like what you need to keep in mind as you're moving forward, so that you can work on overcoming those flaws, or just being aware of them and managing them. If it's not something you feel like you're gonna overcome, like, I don't think I'm ever really going to overcome that tendency of always wanting to do things my way. Like, that's just something that's sort of part of me. Fun fact, actually, this is almost too embarrassing to share, but my first word ever, like when I was a baby, my first word was self. Like, literally, that I wanted to do something myself, so I said the word self. That's really embarrassing to share, but I'm just like that. I don't know. But yeah, so I don't think that's something I'm ever really going to overcome, but it's something that I have to be aware of. It's something that I have to manage, and it's just something that I'm going to keep in mind as I move forward. And being aware of and managing your flaws, I think, is really important. And I could honestly make a whole video talking about, you know, my flaws and how I try to be aware of them and manage them. But that's probably a separate topic. But yeah, I think that covers some of the stuff that I'm going to be trying to work on this year. I will update you at the end of the year, whether I was successful at my goals or not. I think with stuff like YouTube and music, you'll actually be able to check me on my goals, and you'll be able to see whether I'm doing well or not. So you'll be able to see whether my strategies worked for me or if I totally failed at them. So I guess that'll be interesting. But you can, if you want to, leave a comment with your own goals, or if you have tips and tricks and whatever advice to share, feel free. I'll try to cheer you on as much as I can. And, you know, I just want to say, like, I think this was kind of a unorthodox approach to a video. This almost feels like it's a little bit like, I don't know, too egotistical to share in a way, just because like I'm literally just talking about my own goals the entire video. But I really hope that this was helpful, because I think this is the kind of thing that, like, if I'm thinking of what I need to hear in order to be motivated and, you know, make goals for myself, this is the kind of video that I would need to hear. So I hope it's helpful to you as well. But yeah, I hope you have a really, really good 2026. I hope everything works out for you, and I'll see you next time. Peace.